thousands of hours of studying AI, hundreds of conversations for a couple dozen AI predictions for you. I get it. You don't have 3, 4, 10 hours a day to keep up with what's going in AI. There's probably a lot of uneasy feelings and saying, like, hey, this is going way too fast. If only I had something to help me keep up and to cut through the nonsense. Well, that's what you have in everyday AI. And today we are bringing you a special edition, volume 2 of our 25 biggest and boldest AI predictions for 2025. And unlike last year, where I jammed them all into one episode that was entirely too long, this week we are bringing them to you 5 at a time, 5 days. Like I said, hundreds of conversations that I had about generative AI in 2024. And, going back to literally, I remember in March when I partnered up with NVIDIA at their GTC conference, I was already writing notes for this very show, for this very series, so you can get ahead and grow your company and grow your career. That sounds like what you're trying to do. This series and this show is for you. Welcome. This is Everyday AI. My name is Jordan Wilson, and this thing's for you. It is a daily live stream podcast, free daily newsletter, helping us all learn and leverage generative AI to grow our companies and career. This is unscripted, unedited. I'm just bringing it to you real. All right. Everyone else is, trying to tell you what you need to hear or what you think you want to hear. I am telling you what you need to hear when it comes to AI. All right. Something else you need to hear, our website. You got to go there. It's youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. If you're looking for the daily news, technically this one's pre-recorded because it's a lot of work. It's technically like nighttime, but you're probably hearing it in the daytime. But live stream audience, I still want to hear from you. And let me just answer this. Like, okay, Jordan, why are you doing this? Why are you doing predictions? Number one. Number two, why are you drawing it out? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, why am I doing these predictions? People ask me all the time, Jordan, what's next? Jordan, you talk to, people at Microsoft and IBM and Google and right. I have great relationships and conversations with people. Those, I've interviewed hundreds of people in 2024, and I've had hundreds of conversations that you didn't hear. Right? Get things off the record, on the record, NDAs, non-disclosures, right? But now I can finally give it to you all in my predictions. And I did this last year, and I still had people reaching out to me like 10 months later, being like, how did you know all that, right? You were correct. I didn't say those things, but you can go listen to the old 2024 episode out there and let me know for yourself. But without further ado, let's jump back into it. Like I said, this is volume 2 of a 5-volume series. Happy Tuesday if you're listening live, but you can go listen to yesterday's episode and join us in the coming days as we go through volumes 3, 4, and 5. But to quickly set today's stage, today we're going to be covering a lot of different things, but I'm calling this group of 5 predictions: AI market forces collide, global powers, prices, and problems. Yeah, you like that alliteration, don't you? All right. So let's jump into it, but I'll give you a quick recap of yesterday's 5 predictions. If you want to know more, go back, read, listen, whatever you want to do. We recap them in our newsletter yesterday as well. So 25, agent orchestrators will be a growing position. 24, public companies will post job for AI agents. 23, company reasoning data collection. 22, high-end professional services will go through a pricing crisis. And 21, UBI will become a household conversation. All right, so today's volume 2, here's our 5 predictions. We're going to dive in deep, but go pretty quick. I'm challenging myself to do these episodes in 25 minutes. Branding, 25 predictions across 5 days, 5 predictions each for a total of 25, trying to do these in 25 minutes. All right, here we go. Here's today's, and we're going to dive into them. Ready? 20, open source surges. Open LLMs will temporarily overtake proprietary models. 19, Chinese AI will dominate and cause confusion. 18, Perplexity will either pivot, get acquired, or get squashed. Yeah, hot takes. It's Tuesday, y'all. 17 API prices are gonna drop like they're hot, and 16 embodied AI will be an exploding sector. All right, live stream audience, like yesterday, I want to know which one of these are the most likely and which one is the least likely. Right? I'm gonna revisit this in 6 months, but I want to see. Do you know your stuff? Do you have a crystal ball, right? Do you know what's going on? Let me know. You can even just put what the number and which one you think is most likely, the number, what you think is least likely. Please go ahead and do that right now. I always love hearing from our live stream audience. All right, enough of the chit chat. Let's get into it and talk about our first one, open source models. Here's the reality. Open source models haven't been fully tapped into yet. They started to really trend in the latter part of 2024. All right, so there are fully open source models. Let me just get this piece out of the way right now, right? There's fully open source models that you can essentially, there's an open source standard where you can download them, you can fork them, you can do anything. And then there's also Meta's Llama models, which are not technically open source. Meta calls them open source. They aren't open source by the technical open source standard. Although what Meta is trying to do is they're just trying to redefine what open source is. But for a lot of intent and purposes, it is an open model, although not truly open source. But Meta has been a huge driver in the movement nonetheless, because y'all, you have big companies like NVIDIA forking and building off Meta Llamas, Meta Llama models, and they are not topping, but they are in the top tier of rankings and of these charts that we'll be talking about. So why the heck are open source models going to temporarily overtake proprietary? So I kind of told you what open source models are. You can, for the most part, download them if you have a powerful computer. There's smaller, small language models that you can download. There's a lot of reasons why they're becoming very popular. Well, one is they're more secure, right? You don't have to send any of your information. You don't have to send any of your data to the cloud. If you're working with a smaller model, right? Maybe something that's only a billion or two parameters, it's very fast, right? Because you don't have that kind of extra inference time that you're waiting on a cloud provider to, go and crunch your prompt. So security, it's fast. It's better for the environment too, right? So there's a lot of good, I guess, kind of under the radar reasons that I think is good to root for open source models, right? Proprietary models like OpenAI's GPT, Claude Anthropic, there's plenty of others, right? Google Gemini, they're big models, right? These big companies, they're trying to, obviously, right? They want to profit off their models. Everyone does, right? So you can't download them and fork them and build off them and distill other models with them. You can't. You have to log on to their website or use their API on the back end and pay for it, right? So not everything is open source, but I think open source in 2025, this is the year. I don't think an open source model is going to top the LM arena or the chatbot arena, like we say. I don't think necessarily that we are going to see an open source model with the highest, as an example, MMLU benchmark. So, I like to say and a lot of people say, but the MMLU is a benchmark. It's like the ACT or the SAT for large language models. So I don't think that it's, but like when I say it's going to temporarily overtake, I'm not saying it's going to be the number one model for a certain benchmark or for ELO scores on the chatbot arena. What I will say, right? I'm just going to go ahead and put these out there, right? I do think that more than half of the top 20 models on the chatbot arena leaderboard at some point in 2025, I'm going to say more than half of them are going to be open source. And you might be saying, okay, well, it sounds like there's more than 1 million different open source models because people can download them, especially smaller ones. It's not terribly time consuming, right? To download one of these, fork them, do some fine tuning, kind of make a smaller model of your own. And that's what a lot of people do. And then they put it out there for everyone else to use. Um, Proprietary models, not so much, but there are like, I don't know, like 10 different versions of Google Gemini, right? There's, O1 preview, O1 mini, O1 full, O1 Pro. So there are dozens of very strong, very powerful proprietary models. So it's not crazy to think that open source could take half of those. Also, recent study said 41% of enterprise companies plan to increase open source model usage. Companies know that there are huge benefits. I don't think that they were really paying attention in 2023 or the first part of 2024 until I do think Meta made that first big open splash and said, yo, look at us, because their models at the time, 3.1 and 3.2, I mean, these were top 3, top 5 models. They were competing with proprietary models. That is something I think when you crowdsource these fixes, right? Because if you put your model out there for everyone to look at, for everyone to download, for everyone to improve upon, they're going to find ways to optimize the models to make them better, right? To improve the output. So it's essentially when you put your work out there and crowdsource people to build it, to pick it apart, to tear it apart, it's going to get better. And that compounding kind of crowdsourcing of compute, right? We'll say that, triple C, right? The compounding crowdsourcing of compute. It's the rising sea lifts all ships, or whatever the saying is, right? All right, number 19, Chinese AI will dominate and cause confusion. So speaking of models on the leaderboard, let's look at the top 10. I do think at some point in 2025, 5 of those top 10 models are going to be from China. All right. So reportedly, Alibaba's Qwen models have already been deployed by 90,000 enterprise customers. All right. Also, something that really started to cause a scene at the end of 2024, DeepSeek's V3 model. All right. So cheap. And here's the thing. I don't think it's just large language models when it comes to, Chinese AI will dominate and cause confusion. More on that part here in a second. But I think robotics, China is their humanoid and their robotic production. It's scary. We've shared some of the videos, not like, oh, this is so cool. Look at this. It's nuttier than a squirrel on keto. No, it's scary, right? It's warehouses of what looks like thousands of humanoid robots that are embodied AI, right? Yeah, it's kind of scary. So I think it's not just large language models. It's not just prices. It's not just benchmarks. It's robotics. I think we're going to see other things. I do think China has competed very well in the AI video sector with Kling and some others. But I also think that we're going to see an AI audio competitor as well, right? So China kind of silently, right? So DeepSeek V3, one of the cheapest models to use via the API. Kling, the AI video models, one of the best out there. I would say definitely top 3. The Qwen models, and Qwen has a reasoner model. They're great. They're competing all across the board. Also, here's why it might cause some confusion. There's some people rumbling about this on the internet, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Don't think that about me, but I do think that there is an element of a kind of Trojan horse here, right? So even with, some of these models that are dirt cheap, companies and individuals, they just kind of close their eyes, right? And they just assume like, oh, okay, it's like using Google. It's like using, it's like using OpenAI or Anthropic. It's not. You should probably start reading, everyone out there, business owners, if you're a decision maker making a big choice on what AI system to use. I'm not going to name names. Read the terms of services, read the privacy policies, understand what happens with your data if you're uploading it to these companies. I'll tell you this. I've read them all. Yeah, I'm a dork. I actually read them. I read them. And I also have different AI systems help me read these terms of services. You don't want to know. It's a Trojan horse. That's what it is, right? It's everything's free, everything's cheap, everything's fast, everything's great. And it's like, at what cost? Well, we might find out. And I do think that there's going to be, I won't say an event, but I think there is going to be some mainstream media attention to this very fact, as AI, I think, is also going to get very political in 2025. And this is one of those things when we talk about geopolitical tensions. Yeah, AI is going to be a big part of that, right? A lot of restrictions on, exporting, bans on exporting GPU chips to certain countries, potential tariffs, all of these things. The AI scene is going to get very political, and keep an eye out for stories, I would say probably midway through the year, once the rest of the world kind of looks and understands what's going on, because I think these models, they're very capable, they're very popular, they're very cheap, they're very fast. People are going to use them, businesses are going to use them. And eventually someone's going to be like, wait, should we have looked at this a little more closely? All right, number 18. Here's a spicy hot take for Hot Take Tuesday. Volume 2 of our 2025 AI predictions. Perplexity, everyone's favorite answer engine, will either pivot, get acquired, or get squashed. Here's why. I think Perplexity has lost its focus as a company, right? They're going in so many different directions. They started making a daily podcast, and then the CEO started talking about making hardware, right? It started going in a lot of directions, but that's fine because all other companies are exploring other verticals. Yes, Perplexity is a little smaller than, OpenAI, much smaller than obviously, Google, right? But here's the issue. When companies like OpenAI, they start competing in different spaces, Google, Claude, Anthropic Claude, their core product improves first, right? That's one thing, especially the two startups, that are building these models, Anthropic and OpenAI, right? If they start going in another direction, that means their core product, their core USP has improved. I'm not seeing that with Perplexity. Sorry. Perplexity at its core, it's not a large language model, right? You choose your model, although they have their Sonar model. I don't really know anyone that uses that. Most people will use, GPT 4.0, Claude Sonnet 3.5 new or 3.5.1, whatever you want to call it, 3.6. That's not, Perplexity is not a large language model. It is an answers engine. It is a great product. However, the core functionality, I hate to say this, it's actually gotten worse. It's gotten worse. I've showed it on the show before. What it's supposed to do is it's supposed to crawl out there, look at 10 to 20 different websites and give you answers. It's not getting better at that. In my experience, it's actually gotten a little worse. And the answers engine space has very recently got very crowded. All right, very crowded. So ChatGPT search, which has its flaws too, right? I personally liked Browse with Bing better. ChatGPT search has some problems. I've talked about that on the show many times. But then you also have these large language models are just getting better internet connectivity. You also have Google Deep Research. Google is getting in AI mode. I mean, speaking of deep research, it's one of the most impressive AI tools I've ever used. Right. So ChatGPT search might look at, 8 to 10 websites in a single prompt. Perplexity usually does more, maybe 12 to 20. Y'all, Google Deep Research, it takes a little while, right? Perplexity, you might ask it something, it might take, 5 to 15, 20 seconds. Same thing with ChatGPT, maybe a little faster because it doesn't go to as many sources. Deep Research, yeah, it might take 1, 2, 3 minutes. But I've had certain deep researches that it looks at 1,300 websites, but I routinely get it to look at usually 60 to 200 websites. That is an agentic researcher that works for you. Okay. So Perplexity's got to pivot because what they were doing They didn't get better, and it's too crowded. They're not that special anymore, right? 18 months ago, a year ago, they were still special. Not special anymore. Their core product is not getting better. The space is getting more crowded, and the interest, I don't think, is there. As an example, y'all know I always bring receipts. Search volume, right? That talks about demand. Right now, you might think, I think we live in an AI bubble. So many of us out there, we might think, oh, sure, ChatGPT is maybe a little bit more popular than Perplexity, maybe twice as popular, 3 times. No, 66 times as popular. At least when we talk about search demand, right? There's about 450,000 people a month searching for Perplexity and 30 million people searching for ChatGPT. So Perplexity, I think, has kind of lost its way. I don't use it as much as I have. I still subscribe to it. I paid the paid plan for every single model out there because I'm pushing them every single day. So I can tell you what's worth your time to grow your company and your career. Perplexity might not be worth it very much anymore, right? I have paid Google Gemini, so I get deep research. ChatGPT search for very certain things is very good. Perplexity just doesn't have it anymore. They could get acquired. I don't know. You might see something like an Amazon. I don't know. They might get acqui-hired. They might pivot, or they might fade into oblivion. All right, 17. I got to go fast now. I'm trying to keep these under 25 minutes. So large language model API prices are going to drop like they're hot. This is not a surprise to anyone, but when I say drop, I'm saying they are going to drop. And one of the reasons why, well, a couple of reasons why. Number one is open source, right? If there's free alternatives, the paid alternatives, if they want to stay relevant and make billions of dollars, they have to keep their prices low. Obviously, the hardware, the GPUs, the NPUs, the TPUs, right? All these AI and data center chips are getting more powerful, more plentiful. I think more and more things are going to go edge AI, which takes a little, of that, some of those resources off of the cloud. But I think hardware is getting better. The AI chips are getting better. The open the open models are getting better. All those things drive costs down, right? Inference time goes down, all these things. But I do see, and it's crazy to think about, when GPT-4 was first released in the API. So I'm talking about backend. These are for developers, not, if you're paying $20 a month to use a product on the front end, that's all you're paying, right? Or $200 a month if you're, on like ChatGPT Pro. But otherwise, you're paying an API price, right? You're paying, a price per token. So when GPT-4 was first made available in the API, so for developer, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, I don't know, maybe millions of businesses. These companies don't say, but it was $60 per million tokens for output. All right. So you get ChatGPT to spit out 60 million tokens, a million tokens, $60. Now with GPT-4o, a wildly more capable model, $2.50 went from $60 to $2.50 in about 19 months. All right. I see in 2025 leading frontier models going even cheaper. I think, for easy comparison, I think we're going to break that 50-cent mark, less than 50 cents per million tokens for a leading state-of-the-art model. All right. 2 more here. Number 16, embodied AI is going to be an exploding sector. All right. So what is embodied AI? Well, it's artificial intelligence systems that interact with the physical world, whether that's, robots, autonomous vehicles, drones, wearable AI, robo-taxis, right? It is, we've had these things for a long time, right? Those things I just mentioned, none of those are quote unquote new. Humanoid robotics, autonomous vehicles, drones, wearable AI, etc. None of that's new. What's new is having generative AI and large language models on board. That changes everything. That's how now you have startups, as an example, like Figure, that can go from obscurity and in 2 years turn into a multiple billion-dollar company in like 2 years. You couldn't do that pre-generative AI because you had to build all that artificial intelligence. Now You can just use these companies' API, use the technology that's already there, and essentially start stuffing it in humanoid robots, in robo taxis, in drones, in wearables, and it changes how we interact with the world. I think I'm going to blame Apple, right? Apple came out with the Apple Vision Pro, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is going to change the world." Literally before it came out, I'm like, "This thing's going to suck. No one wants it," right? But I think some of these early examples of embodied AI, especially wearable tech, they were terrible. And just so you guys know, go back and listen. I was never bullish on any of these early wearables. I'm like, nope, 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 that'll flop. No one wants it. I'm very bullish in 2025 on embodied AI. Um, we're going to see AI out and about, just about everywhere, right? It's going to start in some of those areas that I just talked about. So even an example in 2024, VC funding in robotics and drones soared by more than 40%. Another additional kind of hot take on top of this prediction, I do think in some major cities where the law allows it, I think probably more than 10 to 15% of ride share rides will happen with autonomous vehicles, right? I don't think we're going to get the Tesla, whatever they're calling it, the robo taxi AIs. They're always, they're like, oh, this is coming out, in 3 months, and it's going to be $30,000. Then it comes out 8 years later for $100,000, like Cybertruck. So I don't expect Tesla to have anything in 2025, but I do think other companies with this embodied AI bringing essentially large language model technology, vision technology, I think it's going to be fairly common. I do think in big cities, one in every 10 rides potentially by the end of the year will be in these type of vehicles. So embodied AI is going to be huge. All right. I made it. I didn't accidentally talk for a couple of hours. So quick recap of the 5 bold AI predictions in this volume of our series. So open source searches. I think open source models will temporarily overtake proprietary models. I think Chinese AI will dominate and cause some confusion. I think Perplexity will either pivot, get maybe acquired or acqui-hired, or just get squashed. I think API prices are going to get ridiculously cheap. I think we're going to see like less than 50 cents per million token for big models like through OpenAI and Google Gemini. And then I think embodied AI is going to be an exploding sector. All right. I hope that was helpful. Volume 2 in the books. If this is helpful for you, let me know, but probably you should go listen to yesterday's volume 1. It's going to be in your show notes. Make sure to check it out. We talked about a lot of different things, but a lot of things on agents and kind of the next steps in the workplace. So make sure you join us tomorrow for volume 3. We're going to be talking a lot about the kind of contents AI revolution, videos, streams, and stars. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.